Hey, everybody. Scott Bischoff coming to you for Detroit Lions podcast. This is part 2 of the very early look at the corner position. Again, Senior Bowl happened yesterday. I'm going to refer you back to part 1. Watch the beginning of that so I can explain to you where the corners kind of fit and what I think the Lions could be doing with this position. In the draft. There's a variety of ways to look at these things. But we have video number 1 where we talked about the 4 elite players in the class, the four that I think we all should be talking about. And now we're going to talk about 5 more. I don't really have an order for these 5, and I'm sure I'm going to talk about some of these guys who are, they're not going to be the next 5 to go after the first 4 kind of thing. So, again, we're talking about early February. Senior Bowl was yesterday. First one we're going to talk about is Emmanuel Forbes, 6 foot, 180 pounds. I think that's being super generous. Junior from Mississippi State. Very productive ball skills, good hands, a good anticipator of routes, has a strong understanding of what to do to make plays on the ball. Trying to put that in a way that's fair to him. I think he needs to be up close and personal in a wide receiver's space, playing physically to get the most out of what he is as a player. But I also look at him as a 5'11" maybe 170 pound guy. And I just don't think he's going to hold up like that. So what do we do in this scenario where you have an undersized guy who needs to play a really physical brand of football, but doesn't appear to want to play that physical brand of football? So this is where it takes time to formulate an opinion, and you got to watch a bunch. Like, would he be better in some ways as a zone corner than a man press corner? I don't know. Certainly something to think about. But so we're just going to talk about the things that you see on film with him. I think he's better really close and turning and running kind of stuff. He's very wiry, super thin and slender, and that's why I think size is going to be an issue. I can't imagine him being over 170, 175 pounds. I just can't. The athleticism is off the rails with him. He has reportedly hit 44 inches on his vertical, which is, you can see in his film. You can see it in contested catch stuff where he is a jumper. And it gives him it gives him an advantage where he can out jump receivers and get his hands, on passes kind of stuff. He can do those kind of things. And it's his athleticism is really, really good. You can see him in his back pedal. He's really smooth, really fluid. I think he's a fast, explosive player. He is not a good tackler. You can see him. He misses a bunch with his tackling. Again, we're looking maybe at a 5'11", 5'11.5", 175 pound guy. It's tough to ask those guys to step up and bring it. A lot of times it's going to be really hard to ask a guy to do that and have him do that. Again, there's just not a lot of physicality around the way he plays. You can see him get bounced around a bunch. He does get turned very easily. He just there's some physicality where, you wonder. You can see the lack of physicality show up in his film, and you wonder how that translates as things get bigger, faster, stronger at the next level. Again, the positives are he's got really good ball skills. I think he has good anticipation for what routes are coming. It's just, do we think that physically he can hold up? So that's Emmanuel Forbes, corner from Mississippi State. Next on the list, again, this is not an order because Kelee Ringo's coming up. But next on the list is Cam Smith, cornerback from South Carolina. He's a true junior, listed at 6 foot and 188 pounds. Really, really explosive athlete. He is a bully type of player, both outside and inside, as a slot cornerback. He's got good ball skills. He's, again, you can see the versatility with him, both inside and outside. He is very, very competitive. There are times that you can see that competitiveness come out when he tackles, when he hits. Again, very competitive dude. I see a guy who's got super smooth hips, really, really fast feet, and shows the ability to move. Maybe different than the majority of guys in this class. He moves really, really well. There are times when you can see him get real grabby, where you expect, based on what you see on his film, that he's going to take penalties. Some of that has to do with a little bit of guessing at what's coming, but yeah, there's some grabbiness with him. As competitive as he is, there are times when he'll miss tackles too. So it's not. He's not a perfect player there. There's a desire to tackle. I just think there's some technical stuff with him as a tackler where you can see that it doesn't work at times. There are times on film where he gets beat and he'll recover very quickly, very easily. But having said that, I think double moves are going to be a problem for him because he's so aggressive and wants to jump stuff. I could see, just watching him play, I would think that I would want to set that up with him and run a slant or two and then hit him over the top, because he's going to jump what he sees in front of him. And I think you can double move. You can beat him with double moves. But having said that, he does recover well. I think that there are times when he is in press coverage, not a lot, but there are times when you can see him when he misses. So press coverage is more, there's a variety of ways to do it, but it's dangerous to throw both hands at a receiver, because if you miss, you're really in trouble with your feet, because it's hard to throw both your hands together and keep your feet moving. That's a tough thing to do. You can see him do that, where he'll throw both hands, which means his feet have stopped, and then he gets kind of waist bendy, kind of, to put it in offensive lineman terms, and that's a bad place to be. You don't want to be bending at the waist, having missed, and then having to recover. That's a very dangerous thing. But you can see some of that stuff. I watched a couple games from last year and a couple games from this year, and he looked like last year it had all come together for him a little better than this year, where this year he does look a little bit more grabby. Again, I've got more to watch on him. I haven't seen enough to have a totally, rock solid opinion. But that's Cam Smith. That's, there's a lot of good. There's some bad. Can you fix some of the bad? Yeah, I think there are times when he's overly aggressive, and that can hurt him in a variety of ways, but we're talking about a pretty elite mover. Okay, so let's move on to Kelee Ringo. Really big player, redshirt sophomore from Georgia. He's listed at 6'2" and 215 pounds. Big, huge, just an enormous corner. I find him to be a little bit of an enigma. for as big as he is, it's obvious he is super fast, right? So you can see how fast he is. I think he's more straight line fast than he is moving laterally. I think this is a potential problem when it comes to the agilities with him. I think he's going to run a really fast 40 where, that could show off his, hey, I ran 4.3, I'm shutting it down kind of thing. I could see that happening. It is what it is. It's, I suppose if you're 6'2" and 215 and you run 4.3, you might, and you're going to run a little slower in the agilities. You probably don't run them, but, a very physical player. It is clear watching him that he is incredibly fast when he's on. Like when he's feeling it and he's comfortable and he's confident and he knows what's going on. He's very fast. But there's also times watching him where you can see him guessing. And guessing is always that's never a good thing, right? So he's versatile. He plays inside and out. At Georgia, you can see him play in man concepts. You can see him play zone. One of the things that stands out on routes where a receiver pushes him to open up his speed, right? Like a receiver running down the sideline as fast as he can, Ringo stays with him. But when the receiver stops, you can see Ringo grab the receiver's hips. To the point where he almost turns him at times. And there are going to be penalties coming with that kind of stuff. It's nitpicky a little bit, but when you're talking about a player who I think struggles to move laterally and guesses a little bit as to what's happening, the natural outcome there is he may get his hands on, and there's some I think just having him is expecting. You just got to expect and take some of the penalties that are gonna come. He recovers very easy because he can run, so no issues there. Running in a straight line, he's incredibly fast. I just think that as a player, as a corner, watching him when somebody forces him to move side to side, he does lose ground. So those are your issues. And then with the guessing. So, you've got a lot of good. You've got some stuff that you think over time may resolve itself. But some of that stuff is just kind of, where it is. Again, crazy good athlete. Big, fast, physical, all those things. I just think there are some limitations with his abilities in coverage right now that, do you think that you could coach, get some, maybe get him a little more dialed in as far as route combinations. Yeah, but in the end, if he is a little stiff hipped, which I think he is, and that causes him to have some issues moving side to side, I don't know how that gets resolved. It doesn't mean he's a bad prospect. It just means you have to recognize it for what it is. So that's Ringo. There's two more. Julius Brents, I've included in this mix. He is the corner from Kansas State. He was at the Senior Bowl, measured in at 6'3" and 202 pounds, 33 3/4 arms. That's like crazy good long, right? So watching him is interesting. It doesn't surprise me that he stood out at the Senior Bowl. It's not necessarily. It's a great place for a player for Brents to go and push and play and press in the one-on-ones against receivers because it stands out. It just does. A lot of corners don't do it, and it's tough to find physical press guys who do these kind of things. But he's got really long arms. He's tall. He's physical. All those things. So I see him as a pretty ridiculous size length combination for a player at the cornerback position. he's physical. He's going to hit you in the running game. He will. It's not always pretty. It's not always technically sound. It's not always great. He doesn't always wrap up, but he's willing, right? So that's good. He closes very fast, and it makes me wonder because he gets out of his pedals so quick. I know I just described a ridiculous man press combination corner, but I wonder what he would look like in his zone system where you asked him to click and close and come forward on plays developing in front of him. I'm very intrigued as to what that would look like because, he can cover a lot of ground. I just think he's much better coming forward and closing on the ball than he is turning and running with receivers as far as understanding coverage. There are times when he turns and runs where he gets lost a little, where he'll take bad angles. And there are moments on his film where you can see him get beat and give up completions because he's been forced to turn, and in the transition of the turn, he's lost his man. So then, he might take a bad angle, bad step or two to recover. And, that's the difference between a completion and incompletion. He's very active. You can see his hands. When he hits, you can see he's got some pop in his hands. There's a few reps where, he'll, the outside corner or the outside receiver goes in motion and he transitions over to press the slot receiver who doesn't really know it's coming. And boom, at the snap of the ball, the slot receiver is on his back. So he's got some pop in his hands. I wonder, having talked about what we talked about earlier as far as seeing things develop in front of him and being much better there, is it possible that you're looking at a player who might need to transition and play safety? And if so, that's a really nice combination of skills because he can move, he can do all those things. He's got great length. He's really good coming forward. I do think if you want to see him struggle a touch, watch both TCU games. Quentin Johnston kind of owns him at times in these games. And Johnston's a big, fast player. So, it's an interesting matchup for him. And the last note I have on Brents is there's a bit of a issue with the ball in the air. I think he struggles in locating the ball and playing the ball in the air when it comes into his coverage. And I think some of that has to do with a lack of comfort in turning and taking his eyes off of the quarterback and then finding the ball again. So, I really hope it doesn't sound like I'm crushing this kid because I think he's a really good prospect. I think he's an intriguing prospect. I just think that, these are the things that I see watching him that I wonder about. So that's where it is with Brents. The last one is a player who I think is super, super interesting. I think he's a really good football player. His name is Deonte Banks, cornerback, redshirt junior from Maryland, listed at 6'2" and 205. We kind of know how that game goes, so I would expect more of a 6'1", 200 range, maybe a little less than that. But he's under the radar right now, and this is a big physical guy. He can pattern match. He can mirror really well. He runs routes for receivers at times. When I see him, I see a guy who runs really well. Let me say it differently. I see a guy who does a really good job of staying in phase and coverage. And I wonder if it's because he's like seriously really good football IQ, understanding exactly what receivers and what offenses are trying to do. I do have questions about what he's going to run and what he's going to time and all those things. I don't think he's a premium prospect because I do have questions about some of the speed and agility and that stuff. But Maryland's comfortable playing him on an island, kind of leaving him out there without safety help. I think he's pretty refined right now with the things that he does well. His change of direction is really good. I don't think he's the athlete like the other guys in this class are. And that kind of stuff where is he going to run 4.4? I don't think so. But he does a really good job of being in phase and staying kind of locked on without looking like a super premium athlete. So that's kind of where it is with him. Like, I think he can play. I mean, I really think he can play. And it's one of those, like, is this a guy that you're getting a touch later in the draft who can tear up special teams? Because, the reality is, as you get deeper in the draft, the players that you take better win on special teams, or, you better help on special teams as you transition and become a pro. To me, this guy's Deontay Banks is a better football player than Tester. I don't think he's going to test great, but I don't think he needs to, the way he plays with his instincts. As good as he looks in coverage for a bigger player, I could be wrong. He might test through the roof, and we're all going to look back at this and giggle, ha ha ha, whatever. But I do, I like him. I really like him as a player. He's one of the guys I think that as you watch him, you just get comfortable with the things that he does well, and it translates. So there is that's 9 cornerbacks, 8 cornerbacks and 1 safety. Again, we're in early February. We got a long way to go, but this is the kind of stuff we're going to do. Positional breakdowns. We'll have more coming back for you middle to end of the week. I'm not sure which position we'll go to next, but we'll just continue to do this kind of stuff. You guys have a great week. We'll talk to you later. Bye.